Hi, this is Nancy with On Point TV. And we're going to start a live video here in a second, but I just realized just as we started that the dehumidifier is still on. So if you could just, I'm going to take the camera from Athena. Okay, I'm going to come around and I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about what we're going to be doing. All right, I think you can probably hear me okay. Oh, that's much better. All right. What we're going to be doing is quilting this quilt. So this is a quilt that I made using a couple of different techniques that you might have seen on the channel already. So this is mono printing on fabric. I use a gel press, which is a squishy kind of a surface. I put the paint on it, I use stencils, and with that is how I get all of these fabulous fabrics. So every single thing in this quilt is a fabric that I painted. Now I'll try to give you some overviews maybe later. If you're not on our Facebook page, join our Facebook page and or our Instagram channel, which is onpoint_TV, and then you'll be able to see the quilt when it's done. I'll do another kind of all over video with it. So now I'm gonna give it back to Athena. So you should be able to hear me a little bit better then. You know, it doesn't matter how much we try to prepare when we're doing this. Things like forgetting to turn the dehumidifier off, it's just one of those things that's going to happen. So I'm set up at my table. I've got my big table. This is my big, I can't remember even what brand it is, but the table that's got this nice big surface to the front and to the back. That is by far the easiest way if you're going to do your own free motion quilting. This is going to be the type of setup that you're going to want to use. Is there other ways? Absolutely. Is there ways that can be less expensive? Because this table is like over $1,000. So it's got to be something that you know you're going to do. This quilt is about 70 inches square, so I can quilt this myself on this machine. Most quilts that are larger, I actually usually send them out to my friend Karen to have my friend Karen long arm quilt them for me. I used to have a long arm machine about 10 years ago, had it for about 12 years, loved it. It was a Gamble machine, but it took up so much space, and when I got a full-time job, there really just wasn't enough time to be free motion quilting for other people, so I sold that and got this. This is my Pfaff Hobby 1200 Grand Quilter. Don't trip on that, Athena. There's a cord on your foot. Okay, all right. So this is the Grand Quilter. This is a really basic machine. What makes it special for free motion quilting is the extra space that you get here. They do make some bigger ones now. Lots of companies are making them. What is so important, if you're going to be free motioning your quilts by yourself and you're going to do a lot of it, you really want to get a sewing machine that is made for it. All of my other sewing machines can free motion quilt. There's not been one. Even my Kenmore that I got when I was 14 years old, I can free motion quilt on that and have free motion quilted on it. But it's harder. Having a machine like this just makes it easier. I know it's not for everybody. Everybody's not going to be able to get one. Just know that this is what you're dreaming of. What makes this machine special is the only thing this machine does is a straight stitch. It doesn't have any bells and whistles. It does have a thread cutter, and it has a the needle up and down, but that's really about it. So when you're looking for that perfect machine, you want that perfect machine that just has one simple stitch so that you can do your free motion quilting on it. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the tools that I'm going to use. So I'm using in the top a So Fine. This is a polyester thread from Superior Threads. It is a 50 weight polyester, and to go with that in the bottom, I'm using Bottomline, which is the polyester thread from Superior Threads also, that is a 60 weight. So the 50 weight is a little bit heavier than the 60 weight. I like to use a lighter weight in my bobbin for two reasons. I get a better tension and I can put more thread on the bobbin. Now, having said that, I really didn't put any thread on the bobbin. I'm going to use the pre-wound bobbins. So these are the Super Bobs from Superior. I wish Superior was paying me to tell you this, but they're not. I love the Super Bobs. These are all Bottomline thread. I'm going to use a gold in the bottom. For this machine, these little pre-wounds work fabulously. I do one thing though. When I'm putting it in, let's see. It would be going this way, nope, this way. And I do take off that top little piece there that keeps my thread from getting caught on the cardboard. So that is one thing that I do when I'm using the Super Bobs. I'm going to be using a top stitch needle. Now these happen to be the new chrome ones from Schmetz. What's important to me is it's a top stitch needle, and this is a 90, which is a rather large needle. Works great with this polyester thread that I'm going to be quilting with. And that it's a chrome, honestly, I can't tell the difference. I wish that I could tell you, go chrome, go chrome. I don't know why they made them in chrome. I bought them to give them a try. They work great, but I don't know that they work any better than the other ones. And I think they're, I don't know, 50 cents to $1 more. But that's what I am using. And then I'm using my lickety grip. So the lickety grip is what I use instead of using gloves. Now I know people love wearing gloves, and I told that's all right, whatever floats your boat. I like to use this lickety grip because then my hands are free to take needle pins out. I can thread a needle when I have the lickety grip on. I can use my scissors. So that's what I do. I just kind of spread it on my hands, and it makes my hands just feel tacky enough to hold the quilt as I'm going. And then I've got a nice little pair of snippers here too. Okay, so we're going to start quilting, and the idea here is we are going to quilt improvisationally. So this quilt itself is improvisational. All of the fabrics were painted improvisationally. I painted them, they were pretty, I put them together. Now I did cut most of these pieces out, so let me see here. Let me get to here, this one right here. Do you see this block? This block, all of the pieces within that block, I cut those out with my Gemini. Now, if you want to know what the Gemini fabric cutting machine is all about, there is a video on our website. I've done a couple of them with the Gemini, and this was in with the Build a Block. I think this was the Build a Block 2 series. The idea is it cuts out all your pieces for you. So there's a video I did with just the Gemini, and then there's a video that I did with the Scan and Cut and with the Sizzix Big Shot. Love them all. They all have wonderful places in my heart. These ones were done with the Gemini. So the idea is I'm going to show you how I quilt a traditional block. So this is kind of a traditional block, how I'm going to bop around all of the squares. But then for the most part, I'm gonna go improvisational. Like there's this piece here, and I just did these, you know, simple E loops throughout there. On these squares here, I did this bopping technique that I do around it. And in the border, I'm going to do circles and lines. So on the border, when I painted this fabric, sometimes I was using a stamp that had circles, and sometimes I was using a stamp that had letters, and then I used a stencil over top to do some spraying on it. So you'll see that there's a variety of design within the painting, and I'm just going to quilt it that way. I'm going to be improvisational. So I hope to get around a couple of different places on the quilt. We only have halftime of the Lions football game because then Athena has to get back upstairs. So that gives us about 15 minutes, okay? So we're going to start with the border. I'm going to push my quilt over here. I love this big table because then my quilt is just kind of hanging out over there. Move everything out of the way. And right here, I'm not sure what we can see. What can we see? There we go. I'm going to do some back and forth lines. So I'm going to go back and forth on this as we go until I get to some circles. I see some, you know what? We're going to maybe, nope, we'll do this. We'll start this. All right. So I'm all ready to free motion quilt, and here we go. Now I'm just doing back and forth lines. I would like them to be generally pretty straight, but am I worried if they are going to be perfectly straight? No, I am not. You know, on most of my quilts, that's just the way I quilt. I'm not going to be concerned about super straight lines. Even when I do my feathers, I'm not doing feathers that are perfectly all lined up. Mine are going to be much more free motion than that. They're just going to be different sizes as they go. So now I'm going to start going into the bigger lines, going across the entire border, and just go back and forth. So you can kind of, I hope you can see that stencil there. that gave me the idea of doing these lines. Now what I love about this machine, I mean along with all the other things I love about this machine, is this machine can go fast. This, I'm touching the camera. Okay. I'm going a little bit farther. This machine can go very, very fast, and I don't even have it on its highest setting. So I love how fast it can go. Keeping in mind, there is no stitch length when you're doing free motion quilting. The free motion quilting stitch length is all about you and your machine. If my machine is going faster, I'm moving faster. If my machine is going slower, I'm moving slower. It is really a personal choice as to how fast you go. So, all right, we're getting here. I see a couple of circles up here. So now I'm going to do what we generally call pebbles, and I'm going to go around the circles here in the paint. Just going around, and then you go to the next one. So it's kind of a half circle. Now I'm going to go back down and do this big one. Sometimes you're going around it twice. Sometimes you're going around it once. It really depends on you how many times you want to go around. I've gone around that one twice. Now I'm going to go back to doing those straight lines and come back and fill in the space below the circles. So I think you get the idea as to what I'm trying to create with this border. I'm just going to be doing straight lines and circles. Where the fabric has circles, that's where I'm going to do some circles. And where the fabric is not, that's where I'm mostly going to do straight lines. So let me cut the thread here, and I'm going to take you to another part of the quilt. So there is a block up here on the corner. There we go, this guy right here. All right, do you see this block, this star block? I've got the green points, all of this going on. This is the block that I'm going to quilt, and I'm going to use that, what I call bopping. I don't know what else to call it. To me, it's the motion of bopping, so that's what I call it. It's kind of like a traditional way to do free motion quilting around a traditional block. So I'm going to start up here in the corner just because that's what I usually do. Take some pins out as I go. And I'm going to start right here. Now I use a thread cutter on this machine, so I do not need to bring my thread up to the top on this machine, but you see how I just kind of put my finger there? That holds on to the thread tail as I'm starting. As I'm starting, I always take a few teeny tiny stitches, just about in one place. Now I'm going to come down and bop down to this next corner. Now you can do this slowly, taking your time. What I love is when you get down to this corner, you can stop. You can get that thread out of the way. I'll cut that off later. You can rearrange, you can think about where you're going to go next. Right now, I'm going to do this part of the star. So I'm going to come down on this side of that long triangle and go back up on the other side. Got to the bottom. Now I'm going to go back up to the top. All right, now I'm going to bop down to my next place. Here is another long angle. I'm going to go in up the one side and back down the other. Now you'll notice I'm not going quite as fast as I was going when I was doing the lines because it's all up to me. I want more control when I'm doing these points. Now I'm going to go around this square, and I'm going to come in a little bit farther than I had been coming because it is such a large square. Oops, I didn't come in a little bit farther, which means I'll show you how I'll fix that. So from now on, my big squares, I'm not going to go in as much farther, but this is improvisational, so you'll see how I'm going to do it instead. I just don't want to have that many spaces that are unquilted. Now this is fun. Can you see this point and this point? They're not like the other points. The other points were, let me see if I can get that back in there. So there it is. So there's the block that's a V block. Well, when I was making this quilt, I had some left over. And so this one you'll see is not a V block. This is, let's call it a sawtooth block. Yeah, it's going to be just a little bit different. But I'm going to do the same idea. I'm going to go down the long end and come back up. So just kind of bopping in and out as I go. So this time I'm going to do right down the middle for this seam, and then back up. Then I'm going to do the other diagonal. Then I'm going to bop over. So now I'm going to do this square, but remember, I'm not going to go quite as wide in as I thought. And bop over to the corner. Now I have another V block to do. Ouch, that was a pin, painful. Okay, all right, so now I've got this long seam. So look at this long seam coming all the way up here. I need to quilt this entire long seam, and I'm gonna do that with what I call Essing. I'm going to bop to this one point, then instead of bop, 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 I'm going to cross into this seam and then come back to that seam. So it kind of like makes an S, so I call it Essing. But when it comes to this little section, I'm going to do 2 little bops and then come back and do the large one. So I'm going to go all the way down that line now. Come down one end, cross that intersection, do these 2 little bops of those triangles, cross the intersection to the other side, and then come back down on the long side. This time I'm going to go on the long side, cross the intersection, then I'm right back where I was. Now it's time to do another point. So I think that you get the idea of how I'm getting around this block, kind of going on each seam. So I want to stop and show you how I told you that I'm going to do this block a little different. Wait a minute, I need to have my other, oh well, we're gonna fake it. It's improvisational. I can do that. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna cut the thread and I'm gonna do this one last seam right here. I'm gonna be a little bit off there. All right, so what is wrong with this one is that there's not enough quilting in the middle. Everything else is going to be quilted into about 2-inch increments, and that's about 3.5 inches, too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna double up on what I've done. Just going a little bit farther. And then it gets it down to more of a agreeable, unquilted section. And as long as I'm there, being as this is improvisational, I would probably come to and do this. So I've got this nice big 4 patch, same idea. Gonna cross it, come all the way down, come back up, all the way back up to the top. Now I'm able to go around the block and back down. Now I'm going to cross over to the whole other side of the block, right down that center seam, crisscrossing right there in the middle. Crisscrossing, you see what a cool design that makes in the middle, kind of like that little flower that it creates. And I did on purpose use a dark thread, 1, so that you could see what I was quilting, but 2, because it had blue borders, I just thought that would look cool having a blue thread. Generally speaking, when you start doing this type of quilting, you want to use invisible thread. If your machine can quilt with invisible thread, which not all machines can, so just fair warning, using invisible thread on something like this just makes it a little easier, so you don't have to worry about how not perfect your lines are. And I hope you notice how not perfect my lines are, and I'm totally okay with that. So again, I'm going to do that same idea. Come inside and put a double layer on this so that I've got more quilted in the middle and not so much unquilted space. So like that, and I'll do that with the rest of those. So let me cut my thread off. And I want to show you a feather. Here, this will be our feather over here. Aren't these the prettiest fabrics? I know some of you are out there going, it's too wild, there's too many colors, it's just more than I can handle. And I understand that, and this won't be for you. I love this. I love all of the colors coming together. I love all the design coming together. I love that I painted every single piece of fabric that is in this quilt. And I love doing that. I love that this quilt is completely and totally my creation, from the fabric all the way to the quilting. It's all mine. So if you don't love it, I hope that you're instead just loving the quilting instead. All right. So now I'm going to do a feather. So you see that the painted design here has a feather. Now you might be thinking that I should actually follow those feathers. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. That just would be a little bit too conventional, I guess. So I'm going to do a feather, but I'm going to be okay that the feather is not going to be outlining all of these painted feathers on the quilt. So again, I used my thread cutters and my needle is down, so I don't need to bring my thread up, and I'm ready to start. Now when I start my feathers, I always start at the bottom of the feather and go up to the top inside of it. So on the outside to the inside. So watch here. Going on the outside to the inside. Then on the other one, outside to inside. I call these open feathers. A traditional quilted feather, you're going to be concentrating on going right on top of the last line that you quilted, and that's fabulous. Those are so beautiful. It's not for me. I mean, I can do it if I really, really want to. I have done it. But for this quilt in particular, there is nothing about this quilt that is traditional, so I am not going to try to do traditional quilting designs on it. So I just go up and down, all the way, kind of going on the outside edge first, curving on down, and then to the inside. Giving it this curve where it comes back down a little bit, that's what gives them a little bit of character instead of just being straight up and down. So I've got 2 more to do up here, and then I generally finish my feathers by going all the way straight down the spine. It kind of gives it a thicker spine, something hard, thicker for it to hold on to. And then I'm down to the bottom. All right, so that's how I'm going to do my feathers. And then I want to show you one big area. I'll do it on the yellow. And I did one of them. You might have seen it in the thumbnail, but it's going to be one big star. So kind of like a big sunflower. Yeah, so right here I'm going to create one big sunflower star. I'm going to start in the middle with a little bit of a kind of a circular motion. I'm going to go in and then come all the way back out again and come all the way around the outside edge. So I'm right back where I started. Now I'm going to start doing what I call my star or my sun points. So kind of like a flame, I guess. Now I could do a big flower, but I like the idea of the flame instead. And the idea is to come out and create a point and then come back in. And I'm going to try and do this so that it fills the entire block. I'm going to go all the way to the corner. So my sun is going to end up being a square instead of a circle. And just work your way around. One thing that gives character to these is when your points have a little bit of a curve to them. Instead of just going straight up and straight down, giving them that little bit of a curve is going to give it character. I don't know if you can have character in quilting, but I think it does. There. To the other. When you're first learning how to do this kind of an idea, or even flowers, it sometimes helps to have spokes so that you know that you're going evenly around. I don't generally draw, I never draw with a stencil on a quilt that I'm going to free motion quilt. I shouldn't say never. I have and I can, but I don't usually. But I do like registration marks, and that's what the idea of spokes would give you, is a registration mark so that you know that you're going evenly around the block. So that's kind of cool, isn't it? All right, how about one more design right here. Athena's looking at me like, I think halftime's done, Aunt Nancy. I think that we need to be going. All right, this is a quarter square triangle. I'm going to show you how I quilt that quarter square triangle. It's the same idea as that bopping that we had done earlier, but instead, I'm going to do the middle first. I'm going to crisscross, go an Essing on down, back up, and now I'm going to cross to the other side, and then S, back and forth. So now I've created again that kind of flower point, and then I'm going to, whoops, I ran out of bobbin. So, see how I ran out of bobbin? That tells me that we're done, which is probably Providence because the Lions halftime is now done, so Athena has to go back and watch the game. So this is the free motion quilting on my improvisational quilt, so free motion improvisationally, just fun. The whole idea of free motion quilting is for you to be able to free motion quilt your own quilts. And if it's not fun, then don't do it. Have somebody else do it. Pay somebody to do it. But this I can tell you, you will never have fun doing it until you have done enough of it that you're comfortable. And the only way to do enough of it to be comfortable is not to practice. It's just to do it. Get those baby quilts out, those pillow tops out, those table runners out, those kinds of things. Start. Just start. You'll never get any better unless you just keep doing it. I don't want to tell you how old I am right now, but I can tell you that I've been free motion quilting for 25 years. Started on my old Kenmore and just am continuing to do my very own even today. Hope you like this video. We haven't done a live in a while, so So follow us on our YouTube channel, OnPoint-TV. Subscribe to our channel, hit that notifications button, then you'll know when we are coming live, or if we've done a recorded and edited version. And we have a Facebook page, and on the Facebook page is probably where I'll send some of these pictures of the finished quilt, and an Instagram page. Oh, and I think we're on Pinterest. Yeah, all of those different places are where you can find OnPoint-TV, Quilting with Nancy. Have a great day.